Watch a panel on Piers Morgan erupt into absolute chaos as the leftists share their unhinged, anti-human takes. This is going to be a good clip, guys. I know you're going to like it. The left has gone just bonkers after the assassination of this UnitedHealthcare CEO. You've seen some of them essentially eulogizing the alleged killer. It's a lot of weird stuff, guys. So we're going to get right into it. It's going to be good. But first, do me a big favor here. Like our video and share it around so we can keep bringing you guys this great, hard-hitting content. All right? And as always, everybody, I'm your host, Darian, and this is Resist the Mainstream.
You have to get to the root of why there is this deep well of tragedy, despair, and outrage in the United States of America. And that has to do with what Brian Thompson has chosen to do with his life, and what companies like UnitedHealthcare have chosen to do to the American people.
But just to be clear, before I go to Natalie to respond to that, do you feel any empathy for Brian Thompson and his family?
I have infinite empathy for any individual as a person in their personal capacity. As his role as the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, I'm afraid I'm with the overwhelming majority, bipartisan majority of the American people who say, I'm saving my empathy for people who are much more vulnerable, and have caused a lot less harm.
So to be clear, you don't have any empathy for him after he was executed?
I personally don't.
Right. Okay. Well, at least you're honest. Let me go to Natalie Winters. I mean, I find this staggering. You've got to remember, the left is supposed to be the party that cares so much. All of them have their Be Kind hashtags. They're the caring ones, the kind ones. And they can't even bring it in their hearts to say they find a shred of empathy for a man who's just been executed, who's the father of children, the husband of a loving wife, and so on. I find that just staggering, that you can't, on a human level, have empathy for the murder of someone, but also make your point about the system in which he was an executive. What's your response?
I mean, it's absolutely shocking. And look, what it gets to the core of is the continued dehumanization of people, because in the sort of culturally Marxist paradigm of oppressor versus oppressed, you're allowed to do whatever you want to someone who has allegedly, or in this case, I'm not a supporter of the United States healthcare system or apparatus. Believe me, there's so many problems that need to be fixed and adjusted there. But condoning, which is in effect what these two panelists are doing, the assassination of him by a roundabout way by saying, well, the healthcare system is, you just told me that you had absolutely no empathy and that you think what people are doing by gunning down healthcare executives because of bad decisions.
And by the way, I do not condone vigilante violence in either instance.
Typical leftist lying and gaslighting. This point is very important to keep in mind. The left is essentially a religious cult, and anybody who falls outside of that cult, from their perception, is as good as a dog, or even worse. They are not human. That is why they routinely engage in political violence, routinely excuse it, as you can see with this lady here, who's now kind of backtracking and lying about it, saying, oh, no, I didn't condone it. I'm just saying it's really not that big of a deal, and blah, 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 et cetera, all this kind of thing. Look at Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Have you ever seen a leftist, or a Democrat for that matter, condemn either of those two organizations? They are terrorist organizations, objectively so, by any kind of definition, and if you look at that honestly, and they will never say a thing about it. Diddly squat, nothing. Keep that in mind. They are not good people.
So you don't misrepresent my view. If you can make your case without telling a lie, miss, then you should do it. I have empathy for the 68 million Americans and their families who are killed every single year by the
policy of the
United Healthcare system.
Don't talk over each other, we can't hear you. Okay, look, listen, Brianna,
Can I just
I'll let you speak,
if you think
let Natalie have her say, and then I'll let people respond.
By the way, if you think Luigi Mangione is someone who you maybe have empathy or sympathy for, this is someone who had a very privileged upbringing, background, very wealthy family. The CEO of UnitedHealthcare is someone who came from a working class family, went to state schools, didn't go to the University of Pennsylvania. Like I said, I'm not defending the healthcare system writ large, but to say that you don't have empathy because you view him as an oppressor of the American people is a perversion, not just of the system of law and justice in this country, but that's extreme. You just said you don't have empathy for a man who was murdered in cold blood on the streets of New York. So what do you have for him?
You are
Sympathy?
obsessed with this oppressed language. It seems to be a bit of a kink.
You are so much so that you just said you don't have empathy.
You notice how these Democrats and leftists always have to tie things to sex? They're obsessed with it. You guys have this kink. This really reminds me of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, as many people know her, when she would constantly say that Republicans just want to date her and they've got some kind of sexual hang-ups about her boyfriend's feet. That was something she went and claimed in public shamelessly. with no reason or backing to even say so. And it was just allowed. You know, it was okay because they're Democrats. They can get away with saying that kind of thing. You know, imagine if some kind of Republican politician was going after Democrats and saying, oh, yeah, you know, you guys are getting sexual with this, blah, blah, blah. Especially if it was a male, by the way. You know, there's that double standard, too. You know, a female can say that kind of stuff, but if a man says that, you know, it's essentially rape or something like that. But if a woman says that, oh, no, it's no big deal. Living her best life, being herself, ha, 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 you know how it goes. And this continues with their political policies, too. Just look at how they go after children in the schools, constantly trying to groom them into being LGBT and the like. All right, and don't get me started on that book, Gender Queer, which is available in public schools for children to access thanks to Democrats, all right? It's all a projection, okay? They talk about, you know, the sex stuff, say, oh, Republicans have a kink, oh, Republicans have a sexual hang-up, all this kind of stuff. They are the ones obsessed with sex, and that is why they project it, much like many other things. It's really quite insane and a little bit perverse. Not a little bit, a lot.
Empathy for a murder victim.
I said, let me be clear. I said, as a person, interpersonally, of course, he has a family, and those people are feeling grief, and those people, as far as I know, are innocent in all of this. But the question is, here's the real question. Why are we asking random pundits, who might personally have been victimized, by the way, by someone like Brian Thompson, why they would have empathy for him and their family, while there's no question being asked about who has empathy for the tens of thousands of Americans who are killed every year by the policies that Brian Thompson has made millions and millions,
Clay,
tens of millions of dollars off of. Why are we talking about the fact that this 25-year-old, 26-year-old perpetrator, alleged perpetrator, went to an Ivy League school when obviously he was so still financially precarious, or obviously we don't know, the facts will come out. But the fact that someone who is relatively privileged in the United States of America can still feel so overwhelmed by our healthcare system that they would go to these lengths, that people who are relatively affluent still find themselves in medical bankruptcy, as you so rightly pointed out earlier.
You notice how Democrats are always making excuses for criminals and the disgusting acts they do, especially crimes, and even if they're violent. Notice what she says about this guy right here, okay? That, you know, oh, well, he felt like he had to do this, all this stuff. Yeah, it reminds me of when, I hate to bring her up again, but AOC made excuses for the BLM looting and rioting and said, yeah, you know, people are just hungry. They just want to get their bread. And then, you know, you ever see that meme where she makes that ridiculous statement, then it pans to them, and you have a bunch of these people running through the, you know, Walmarts and things like that, looting TVs, looting shoes, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they just need bread, right?
Earlier, Piers Morgan, that 50% of families that have a cancer diagnosis in their family in the United States of America go bankrupt. That is where the moral outrage should lie. But when you go on loot programs, no offense, Piers, who have wealthy, affluent house, the focus seems to be on the family of the millionaire and not on the families of the people who have been terrorized by the healthcare system.
You made your point. Listen, I'm in London at the moment. In the UK, we have the National Health Service. It's free healthcare for all. You know, so I find the whole system in America completely baffling, that a country of your size and power and economic muscle can't have a better system where people don't fall through the cracks in such large numbers. I completely agree. But that is a separate issue to the execution of someone in the street. Clay, I could see you were rolling your eyes there.
But it's not a separate issue.
Well, let me bring Clay in.
It is a separate. Piers, I'm in Israel right now. I just been touring a lot of the kibbutzes where there were people who were murdered because they were Jewish. I can't help but see the analogy here. You can be upset with a larger societal issue. It does not justify murdering people because of it. And if you are making that argument, and Brianna is making that argument, I'm sorry, her brain is broken.
With that being said, we're going to end the video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. What'd you all think? Comment below. Let us know what you think about that lady and her rant, what Piers said, all of that. We want to hear it. And we'll see everybody again soon. God bless.